creation and evolution. So I brought in a former teacher who's an outstanding student of dinosaurs. And we're exposing our kids to research that's been done. And we're doing it like a court case. Evidence, point one, evidence, point two. And matter of fact, I'm going to be showing those on our daily program here in a week or two. We're editing them as we're filming. But I want my young people to know how to distinguish between truth and
Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
We have to be careful. When we attack people, we have to be careful.
You mentioned Charlie Kirk, sir. What organizations on the left do you anticipate investigating? We talked about this last week.
Well, the problem is on the left. If you look at the problem is on the left. It's not on the right, like some people like to say on the right. The problem we have is on the left. And when you look at the agitators, you look at the scum that speaks so badly of our country, the American flag burnings all over the place, that's the left, that's not the right.
Do you plan on investigating?
We'll see. We'll be announcing. They're already under investigation. You know, they're already under major investigation. A lot of the people that you would traditionally say are on the left.
They're already under investigation?
Already under investigation.
Have you asked to start revoking the visas of those who have celebrated Charlie Kirk's death? What? Have you asked to start revoking the visas of the foreigners who have celebrated Charlie Kirk's death?
No, we haven't, but we are looking at names. We don't like that. That's not right. We wouldn't celebrate if something happened on their side, and we don't. These are sick people. These are really deranged people.
Any progress on the Fed chairman, sir?
Well, other than I don't like him.
No, but
he's incompetent. The Fed chairman.
Welcome back to More War Monday. The Rob Maness Show is live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. The war has come to us. I wanted to honor Charlie Kirk with today's show, but we're going to do that tomorrow because we need to discuss this reality today. Just last Monday, this show again sounded the warning of the Marxism, Islamism, the red-green axis gaining a foothold on the ground here in America. Our friend and great American Charlie Kirk was brutally executed in public on video 2 days later in Utah by a man that inscribed Antifa, anti-fascist slogans on his bullets, and that lives with and dates a man that thinks he's a woman. In the ensuing days, we've seen a CNN senior national security analyst say this: we don't know the meaning of the Charlie Kirk assassin's message after hearing the Bella Ciao anti-fascist song title inscribed on a bullet and being told one casing says, "Fascist, catch this." You'll see the clip. Independent journalist Andy No said yesterday, and I quote, "It's hard for me to overstate the significance of the Charlie Kirk assassin suspect allegedly putting the lyrics of Bella Ciao on a rifle cartridge. That is probably the most important rallying song to Antifa militants for decades. The 2019 Tacoma Antifa gunman cited it in his manifesto before carrying out a deadly shooting and explosives attack at an ICE facility," close quote. Friends, we can no longer deny this war like the left is attempting to do, and many on the right do. It is time to disrupt it before it is too late. we find ourselves in before we find ourselves in all-out combat right here at home. Well, my guest today to discuss all this is veteran TV news producer, host of the Analyst Substack, former diplomat, and brand new host. Well, I say brand new. He's been around a while now, of the Real America's Voice, American Sunrise Early Edition, Jake Novak. Jake, welcome back to the Rob Maness Show.
Thanks. Wish we were under better circumstances. I think I've said that a few times here, but that's the fact.
I do too. I mean, this is honestly, I'm beside myself, Jake. I'm telling you, man, it is. It's incredible. But the more time goes and the more incidents happen, the more we're proven right. And I don't understand it. Look, I was in the Pentagon on 9/11. I did media all day Thursday talking about that and this assassination all day from 0500 my time to 2100, 9 p.m. And I don't understand why the institutions in the United States of America can't get this figured out, because that's literally where we're at, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of head in the sand stuff. There's the one thing, and this is not an excuse, but one thing that I think might be motivating some of these people in government to try to water it down is the fact that even when it isn't the fault of the people in the government at this moment, widespread mayhem and violence on the streets is just never good for the group that's currently in charge. We learned that the hard way during the George Floyd riots and things like that in 2020. This was something that was meant to undermine President Trump, and yet it undermined him in another way, and that people saw this and thought, well, we need a change. Some people did, so I think that might be one motivation, but it's not a good excuse anymore, because people want to see a significant pushback on this, a legal one, but one that's very stern. And the first thing I said after all of this came to light last week was, we need arrests, we need licenses pulled, we need certain things to happen immediately. And sure, there'll be lawsuits trying to stop it, but let them try, just like we took that approach to the closing the borders and doing these deportations, and that's working out very well, by the way. So why not do it with these people who are fomenting violence, causing violence, committing violence in this country?
Yeah, and it's not about their words, really. Look, we don't believe that in this country. That's one of the things I'm most frustrated with, watching some of my friends, well, I wouldn't call them friends, but my Republican colleagues, peers, get on TV and say, it's time to unify. It's time to we need unity now more than ever. J.D. Vance was on hosting Charlie Kirk's show, and I caught the last few minutes of it, and it was an extensive takedown of that concept. We cannot unify with a political party members that are interested in killing us on television in front of our kids. I mean, that's literally what about 25% of the Democrat Party's members believe, from what Vice President Vance said. It's incredible. We need to get our institutions rolling and, like you said, leaning into this, because this is internal. It's internal to us domestically, but it's linked inextricably to Chinese communists, to Marxists and communists inside the country and around the world, and to Islamists, not just inside the country, but outside the country. Just before we came on air, I saw a screenshot of a news release that said the Taliban has been in discussions with members of the Trump administration about normalizing relations. It's incredible. Yeah. I don't understand it.
It's about the idea that sometimes you can make deals, and there's a lot of deals to be made in the world, absolutely, but not while they're actively attacking us. A lot of people talk about, for example, President Nixon in 1972 making an alliance with China as a way to sort of freeze out the Soviet Union or make them weaker. And that was done at a time when China, with the very small exception of certain things that were going on the campuses, Vietnam War, pretty much the shooting had ended by that point. China was definitely our enemy at that time, but they weren't doing the kinds of things that we're seeing now. They were not arming and fomenting that kind of violence. They weren't using a major psychological operation in the country at the time. They were dangerous. I'm not excusing that at all, but it was a different time. In other words, so we can't make deals with the Taliban. I don't think we can make deals with Qatari-funded terrorist groups either. Things like that. That's not something we can do right now. It's way too serious, and they have done way too much damage to an entire generation of our American children. It's not the time for deals. Listen, we can have mercy on people after they have been convicted and punished, and we can talk about maybe, well, what kind of maybe we'll release them if they show some real contrition in jail or wherever else they're getting punished. But that's a discussion to have a long time from now. We need to make arrests. There need to be people who are tried criminally and also sued civilly if there's a civil case. And this needs to happen. It should have happened a long time ago, but we got to do it real soon now.
Do you think that even the best of our folks that are in the administration, and I mean there are some fantastic people on the America First side, like Stephen Miller, do you think that they have the right sense of the enormity of what is happening from a organic, without being prompted, growth in America First beliefs, the population that's now been awakened, for want of a better term, because I would think that we would see and Steve Bannon's called for this, I think you have too, a press conference every single day from Kash Patel about what what they found and what they're looking at. And we'll see, I think the next clip in the next break at the beginning of it is Kash doing a roll-up from this morning, I believe. Might have been yesterday, about what they've done. But there needs to be, I mean, this is like 9/11. I mean, it's that level of an event, isn't it?
I think it is. And, one of the things that is really interesting about all of this is that, and I think we joked about this once, one of the things that we have going for us in this country is it isn't just one entity that's invaded us. It's so many of them that they're kind of jockeying for position on their own and giving us a chance. We need to take it while we can to sort of take them down one at a time. If it were just China, we'd be conquered by now. If it was just all the Islamists, maybe we'd be conquered now. But because they have different avenues of ways of conquering our society, they've conquered most of the news media a long time ago. They conquered academia. They've conquered a lot of the corporate world. I mean, the corporate world has been bending over backwards for our enemies for a long time, and they continue to do so, by the way. It's really quite shocking. So all of this has been done. I mean, I do, you asked about Stephen Miller. I think Stephen Miller, people like that, absolutely have known this for a long time, but they know something else. As strong-willed and as strong-spoken as Stephen Miller is, he also knows that anything the Trump administration says, even if it says 2 + 2 = 4, there will be a tremendous pushback on it. And so they have to weigh all of that. How much do they tell the American people about what's really going on and the real threat, knowing that the second that they tell the full truth, there will be a massive pushback on it, no matter how obvious it is. So they have to kind of play that game. I mean, as much as it was an attempt to undermine George W. Bush and his administration's comments about what needed to be done about terrorism and the terror threats in this country, it wasn't like the pushback that we would get today from anything the Trump administration says. I mean, people who literally are cutting their nose off to spite him, and it's or cutting other parts of their bodies off. So, I mean, it's really quite insane. And it's one of the ways that you really undermine a society. And we've seen it in history so many times. This is what undermined the Greek democracy in ancient times. And this is very similar to the internal hatred that we had in this country in the years leading up to the Civil War. But the difference there was, while Great Britain did support the Confederacy in the war, they did not support internal pro-slavery movements before the war. That was just a strategic move they did post 1861. But what we have now are many foreign countries and entities who are supporting and creating hatred and now death here in this country on an industrial scale.
Yeah, it is an industrial scale, and they're going after kids. I don't know if you've seen the clips of the people putting, highlighting where the Miller family lives on the sidewalks and driveway with colored chalk. They're going after kids, and they walk away, won't even own it. Won't even own it when they're asked. They won't even explain it. And we all know what it is. It's an attempt to incite and bring violence on the Miller family. That's what it is. And that's where we're at in this country. We got to take a break, Jake. When we come back, we'll hear from Kash Patel on what the latest update is within the last 24 hours, anyway.
As soon as we learned of the shooting, we were able to, I think Charlie Kirk was shot at 12:23 local time on September 10th. By 12:39 p.m. local time, FBI assets were on scene securing the scene. We then launched at 10 a.m. the next day the first images of the suspect. Myself and the deputy arrived at 5 p.m. local time on September 11th. And then what we did was decided to have a press conference at 8 p.m. local, where we issued for the first time FBI obtained video footage that we seized from the security camera surveillance system and new images, enhanced images. I decided to release immediately to the public because we were working with the public and the media to find this killer. Shortly after that 8 p.m. release, at 10 p.m. local time, the suspect was in custody. Why? Because the father informed us, pursuant to an interview of him, that he looked at the video that we released that evening and the enhanced photos and identified the suspect. That's how fast the FBI was working to put out information in real time. And for comparative sake, the Boston bombing, the FBI didn't release images for 3 days. We know we didn't have 3 days. I made an executive decision on an investigative and operational need, and it turned out to be the right move because the men and women of the FBI said that's what we should be doing.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show, and we've got to talk about this war that's should be obvious to everyone now here domestically inside the United States, that there are a certain segment of our population that is at war, and they are influenced and resourced very well. The Islamists and the communists, the Marxism aspects that we've been talking about have gaining a foothold, are obviously involved. The non-government organizations that are funding and resourcing these folks, from people like George Soros, are involved. And let me make it clear, folks, these organizations are subsidized by you and me. Vice President Vance just made that point just an hour ago on the Charlie Kirk Show, that these organizations providing resourcing to this type of operation are subsidized by you and me and our tax dollars. And my guest today is Jake Novak of Real America's Voice TV, their American Sunrise Early Edition host. He gets up early every single day. I admire him for it because I don't like doing that anymore. I used to do that for a living myself. Jake, welcome back. You know, I'm glad Cash did that. That was Sunday morning, I believe, now that I get a chance to look at it, or in the evening. But we need more of that. We need less of well, we're in an investigation. We can't release this or that. We need more of these facts. I totally agree with Steve Bannon and you and all the others that are calling for it. There should be a daily press conference because, look, as I was just coming on, I saw the news that the suspect is not cooperating with the authorities inside the jail. He's not. While his boyfriend is supposedly, at least was at some point, cooperating, and I think that's important, don't you? That, I mean, Cash is probably the right point man to do it, him or Bongino, every single day, to just lay out the facts. Nobody wants to know about the sex life other than how it relates to Antifa and terrorism and that kind of stuff. We just want to know what the current facts are and what you found, because there's a lot here.
Yeah, I mean, we have to find out, how did he get the gun? I mean, I'm sure he was old enough to be a legal gun owner. It's not a question of whether he had an illegal gun or not, but did somebody pay for it? Did somebody train him how to use it? I know it doesn't take years of training to get off a shot like that, but it takes some training, right? We need to find that out. We need to find out if there was any other help given to him. This is like, after 9/11, obviously the hijackers were dead. We didn't stop. It was like, well, they're dead. We're going to give up. And then we went for years looking for connections and to find out how this was planned and who was responsible and everything else like that. We need to do that as well. There's been this really, really strong criticism of Kash Patel, and I understand the criticism because for one moment there before this shooter was caught, he said that they had caught somebody, and it turned out that wasn't true. A few hours later, it turned out. Listen, okay, that's a fair criticism, but that's not the worst crime in the world. My goodness. I mean, that was during the course of the whole process, and they do apparently seem to have gotten the person right now, or at least the trigger person. There may be more. But yes, this should be a daily update. We should have a special top 10 foreign influence radicals in this country that we want for arrest and questioning that should be named. We should go for all this stuff. We don't have to pass new legislation. This isn't a Patriot Act. Oh, let's pass this, which is, by the way, what I'm worried Congress is going to try to do. We don't need that. We just simply need the FBI and local law enforcement to say, we are going to look into all these connections. These people will be called into questioning, and arrests will be made when we feel we have justification for an arrest. And in the long run, though, if you want to do some legislation, you can do things like banning foreign NGO funding of protests or other things like that. That's something we could talk about, especially if they're violent and things like that. But honestly, just start making arrests now. Start looking at if there was a particular social media site, Discord, where there was something going on there. Let's bring in those people for questioning. What did they see? When did they see it? All these kinds of things are absolutely legitimate. This would happen in any kind of other murder case in America. There's no new rules need to be followed, but we do need to do something. And I do agree. Let's get the leaders of law enforcement in this country to talk to the American public regularly about what's going on here, to identify new threats so that people can be more mobilized and at least more aware of who is out there trying to hurt us.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time in this country, and look, I've been in charge of a large law enforcement operation, and even on a military base, in Albuquerque, New Mexico, a city that's more than 1 million people, where I had to talk to the public and inform them on what was happening so they could help. And I think Cash did the right thing on that, but I think they need to lean into this and over communicate, because the institution's reputation, all of them, are so tattered and beat up now that nobody trusts anything. I mean, you just take the video, that clip that was showing that they released of him coming off the building. There are all kinds of conspiracy theories. Well, where's the rifle? Well, if you have the software, you can zoom in on that, and you can see the rifle is wrapped in a black towel, and he gets off the building with it pretty rapidly. And the FBI reported they found the rifle in the bushes in the woods, wrapped up in a towel. But there was like 48 hours worth of conspiracy and stuff like that on that. The the wound itself of Mr. Kirk. You know, you can publicize facts, basic facts about things without going into things that might hurt his family if they see it, and those kind of things. Just get the facts out. And I'd like your point, and like your point said, around the country, this is not a isolated event. Tyler Bauer, the chief operating officer, Turning Point USA, I believe, he just tweeted out before I came on. He said, "If Utah is radicalized, everywhere is radicalized."
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the incredible operation that's been going on, starting with our schools, starting with the entertainment culture, and of course, you could say it's the news media as well. Though I don't think that news media outlets like the New York Times or CNN have much influence over young people in this country. I mean, their average viewer is between the ages of 64 and died last Tuesday, but still. They echo it so that there's older people who at least understand this lingo and nod maybe politely. Rob, we've had 20 years worth of kids in schools all over this country told that the world's going to end tomorrow because mommy and daddy are driving an SUV. What did we expect we were going to create when we did that? Did you think we were going to create well-adjusted young children and who became young adults? No. We also now, for the last 10 years, have been saying that basically Hitler is leading one of America's major political parties. The people saying that stuff and creating that rhetoric don't believe it, but they don't care. They're trying to scare up people and to indoctrinate people. And unlike, this is something that you'll understand really well. And I was talking about this the other day, hey, we've had societies over the last century or so that really indoctrinated their youth. For example, Nazi Germany, they had literally the Hitler Youth. So why was it so easy for them to get deprogrammed? Well, the answer is because they experienced a horrific war. Believe me, I'm not crying in my beer over what happened to the German civilian population in World War II. I'm really not. But it kind of worked to deprogram them. These people who are committing these acts of violence here in the United States, whether it's Luigi Mangione or this Tyler Robinson, they aren't experiencing any hardship. It's just in the mind. They're not going through a war. They're not going through starvation. They're not rationing. They're not hiding in bunkers. And so it's very hard to get them out of that delusion because it's a comfortable delusion. And that's another thing we need to do. I don't want a real war to come to this country to wake everybody up. So before we get to that extreme, let's remind everybody that we got to look into what our schools are doing. If there's anything remotely political in schools and indoctrination, stop. Just stop it. And we talked about it for a long time, but are we really doing it? No, we're saying, I'll send my kid to another school and that'll be fine. Well, that's not going to be fine if one of those kids who goes to the public school ends up shooting you. So we have to do more than just get our kids away from it. We have to get everybody's kids away from it.
Like Byers said, Utah's radicalized. I mean, think about it. It's Utah. If they're radicalized, everywhere is radicalized. We got to get on this. One of the things that is really bugging me is that it looks like we have three legs here. We've got the funding and resourcing through the leftist non-governmental organizations subsidized by you and me, really. We've got the pool of assassins, which is the kids, the really smart kids. They get, like this kid, Thomas Crooks, or 2 out of the 3 of the last 3 are really smart kids. They get them early. Might not even go to college. I mean, this guy didn't even stay in college. He's really bright, a genius at the genius level. So they have that pool. And then there's an operational architecture of something somehow that is taking the resourcing, finding the recruits, doing the training, providing the resources, and then coordinating the execution of the operation. You could hear that in the Discord messages that were read. Just the few that I heard were operational coordination messages. I don't know who can see that stuff on Discord. I don't really know how Discord works, but I can just imagine having been inside on the intelligence side and the warfighting side, that he could be sending those messages to that account, and they could be being seen surreptitiously and covertly by a lot of different players and actors if they need to be. And it sounds like that's what's going on. These three operations, the two Trump attempted assassinations and this one, are very, very similar along the lines of the operational model that's being used and was now successful to execute Charlie Kirk. I'll get your thoughts on that on the backside of this break, Jake, because that's very important. I want to know what your perspective is on what government entities, what government lines of operation, because it's not just the FBI, it's a whole bunch of different government institutions should be leaning into these operations right now at this moment. We'll be right back with Jake Novak.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
I heard the congressman on there saying, oh, we need to tone down the rhetoric. Well, will the rhetoric get toned down? I mean, again, I go back to what was on the bullet from this kid was fascism, and that's only coming from one side currently in this debate, and it's on every placard and every poster around the country. I mean, I think it's a valid question, but are they going to live up to what they say they're going to do with the Nazi and the fascism and the like? Yeah.
Do you I don't think we know, just to be clear, I mean, just law enforcement people, I don't think we know the meaning of his message. We know his history.
Bella Ciao is an anti-fascist thing. It says fascists catch this.
Then I'll give you his history. Then I'll give you his history, right? Think about his history. His history, but this is not the.
Why are we debating that?
This is what I'm talking about. That's what I wanted to tell you. This was my point, not yours. This was my point, not yours. The point is, who cares? A man was killed, and you have yet to say political violence is bad, period. That's all that people want from the president. That's all. And we're getting the spin up of the you and this and what. Stop counting. Well, stop looking, because you're not going to divine a perfect motive in this case. I think we're looking for it. You're not going to divine it. We generally don't.
Unbelievable, man. This is More War Monday, and the war is definitely here. Do you see it now? Do you see what people like me have been seeing for years now and trying to warn you about? Do you see it? Do you see it? Charlie Kirk has paid the ultimate price for his country at the hands of an American citizen that's been indoctrinated. And Juliet from CNN there, look at her title on that clip. Senior National Security Advisor. And she basically did the Hillary Clinton thing. What difference does it make at this point? What? We have a major war brewing in this United States of America that's not about arguing about the type of central government that should be in Washington, D.C., which is essentially what the Civil War was about. And we killed almost over 600,000, almost 750,000 Americans total in that war with very rudimentary industrialized weaponry and war and maneuver tactics. very rudimentary compared to what the citizens themselves have today. Of course it matters what this guy wrote on those bullets. Of course it matters that he was indoctrinated into anti-fascist, Antifa, and transgender terrorism concepts. Of course it matters that he was resourced somehow. And of course it matters who resourced him. Of course it matters who trained him, who trained Crooks, who trained Ruth. Of course it matters who was communicating with him through operational coordination during the execution. Of course it matters who provided the planning for it. Do you think he just happened to see the top of the building and walked up there? Of course it matters. And you don't think he had some training? Look, according to the timestamps on the videos, he was on the move up until less than 60 seconds from the time he fired the shot, which is pretty long range for a non-sniper type person, or a person that's not familiar with that type of shot. They don't want professionals to do this, but think about that. Less than 60 seconds from the time he fired that shot, he was on the move getting there. He's under stress. His heartbeat is racing. His blood pressure's up. But he had enough training and enough resources to successfully make that shot. We have to know. Of course it matters. And the media hypocrites that say it doesn't matter, and the Republicans saying it's time to unify with people that want to kill Americans for their words, are just wrong. And it's time for our government and our institutions to start working through this problem systematically to disrupt it before it goes too far, like I said in my opening monologue. My guest today is Jake Novak. He is very familiar with Islamism. He's very familiar with communism. He's very familiar with Antifa and terrorism. And he's very familiar with the media and what needs to be done in this government to get this ball rolling so that this can be found, this virus, this infection, and eradicated and disrupted before it goes too far, because we are on that locomotive headed right at that bridge, and the bridge is out. Jake, welcome back.
Thank you.
I went a little long there.
That's all right.
I wanted to set this up to talk about the various lines of operation that need to be being implemented now. It cannot just be the FBI. You mentioned the Patriot Act. We still have those tools. Matter of fact, the dang Congress has made them stronger against American citizens. And instead of looking for MAGA grandmas, they should have been looking at this kind of stuff. We've been telling them for years. So what are your thoughts on what we should be seeing from the government machinery at all levels as to how to crack this problem?
No, we need arrests. I mean, we don't say what difference does it make if someone's killed. We don't say that. Clearly, though, that by the way, that was very telling. The whole "what difference does it make?" and let's just stop killing and not go after people who are responsible and punish them. That's the same reasoning behind letting the guy out 14 times on 14 arrests who killed that woman on the train in Charlotte. It's the same ideology that there is no crime or right or wrong other than what the government or people in power want it to be, and that is what leads to ultimate tyranny. Charlie Kirk was a religious person, so I want to use an important narrative in the Bible to talk about what's going on. In fact, it's something that we read just a couple of weeks ago in the weekly scheduling of the reading of the first 5 books of Moses. If a dead body is found outside the walls of a town, the Bible tells us that the leaders of the town had to bring the whole population out to encircle the body and basically say, if it's true, we don't know how this body died. We don't know what happened here. We absolve ourselves of this. And of course, the idea being, if you're going to go through that, it's going to be hard because someone who knows something is going to crack. The idea being, you can't just ignore it. You can't just say let's just all say we're not going to kill anyone. If there's someone to be punished who has committed this act or aided and abetted it, they have to be punished. And it's got to be more than just one person who is somewhat criminally involved, if not very criminally involved, in the murder of Charlie Kirk. There has to be someone else who was involved in the Thomas Crook shooting of President Trump in Butler, PA. We haven't seen other arrests. This is an emergency. Imagine if, you know, again, could you anyone imagine if John Hinckley hadn't been arrested, or at least, I mean, this is insane that, sure, the shooter's dead, okay, but there was some other people who must have helped this young man in some way or the other. We have to have arrests. Again, I'm not saying arrest someone with no evidence, but get the evidence and arrest people. We need to have crime and punishment. Law and order has been completely abrogated in parts of this country. We have people openly saying, like in Charlotte, that depending on the race of the person who committed the crime, that's going to be the deciding factor in whether they're punished at all, whether they're punished severely or not, or whether we even pursue it. That's the end of a society. Once you decide to go that route, your society is not going to survive. We have to reestablish the simple law and order here. And simply saying, well, I don't want to open that can of worms, or this makes my political party look bad if we look into this. I mean, we have really reached the inmates running the asylum level in America right now. I cannot believe there isn't more pounding at the table for more arrests in this case alone.
Oh, you're absolutely right. You should go back and watch the last 3 minutes of J.D. Vance's appearance on the Charlie Kirk show today. I think you'll see. Yeah. Did you see it? There was a little pounding at the table there, and he's absolutely right, Jake. Damn. You know? Sorry, boss. The boss told me not to cuss. This is a family-friendly channel. I apologize.
You were talking about you were talking about the Hoover Dam.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, this is critically important that not only that they tell the public, but that they have actual they are actually working on the problem. Like you mentioned, Crooks and Root, the golf course shooter guy. You know, that we still don't know anything about them. We know some basic things like, hey, multiple telephones, encrypted accounts, new rifle, rangefinder, you know, some basic information, but we don't know anything about the comms. Who are they talking to? Where'd they get the money? Where'd they go to train? We know a little bit about Crooks. He went to a range that I think FBI agents used, actually, but we don't know that about the other guy. And we don't know in the circle, you know, there's a circle around these operations that of what I described, the resourcing, the funding, the logistics resourcing, the training, the planning, and the execution. All of that has aspects to it that can be seen with the right investigation. They're not always part of the law enforcement or FBI, especially when you're talking about national security. This is a national security issue. It's what we all, unfortunately, agreed to pass the Patriot Act to help do, and I'm just not seeing it in a quick enough fashion to make the public have confidence that we're going to get to the bottom of it before it goes too far. And it's going to go too far. I think it's obvious to the average person of average intellect today in this country that this is going to go too far if it's not disrupted.
Yeah, I mean, I want you to imagine this scenario. What if Osama bin Laden hadn't boasted of his involvement in 9/11? What if he had decided he was just going to keep quiet, not admit it, and not do any boasting about it? And think about how incredibly dangerous that would have been. People would have gone crazy. I mean, we already had conspiracy theories, you know, they're still out there. There would have been he really, luckily, he missed a huge opportunity. Had he just kept his mouth shut, not claimed responsibility, of course, he was ultimately responsible along with Ayman al-Zawahiri and other people like that. But imagine if none of them wanted to take the credit because they just wanted to create the extra attack on America based on all the doubts and the division that would have been created. Well, here we are. Thankfully, it's not a mass casualty event. These are still terrible killings, but we're dealing with one at a time. But it's still a tremendous emergency in America because the people responsible are keeping themselves really hidden. And that is causing even more division in America and even more confusion. And the only way to solve that is to start making arrests as soon as we can and try to get some kind of story out there about, again, a true one, about who's responsible for this. You talked about some of these other cases. What about the Las Vegas shooting? We still have no idea what the heck was that had to do. And that's still the biggest mass shooting in American history. We have absolutely no information to the public about what that was all about. Zero. It's all, if you think you know, it's because, it's conjecture. And think about how dividing that is. We are not being told what we need to know, and as long as we don't know that, it's just going to make things worse. This is a double attack. It adds to it's like a cluster bomb of attacks because it just keeps going off.
Yeah, and it becomes a powder keg eventually, Jake, to where just the slightest spark inside a room that's filled with things like natural gas causes a major explosion that has the capability to kill tens of thousands of people all at once. So, we got to get to the bottom of it. We got to take our last break. When we come back, Antifa, the terror organization. We're going to talk about it, folks. We are going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about this every day if I have to, because our forces that are supposed to be protecting us should be taking that organization apart right this moment, and it's not happening. I'll be right back with Jake Novak.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home. Went to bed.
You have to go after the institutional left. And by that, I mean all of these Antifa, transgender organizations and groups, the billionaires who fund them. All the authority and all of the extent of the law in the Department of Justice, in the executive branch, needs to be brought to bear on the institutional left. These groups do foment violence. There's plenty of evidence that this assassin was not working alone, that he was radicalized on these Antifa Discord servers online where these violent acts are discussed. We've had too many transgender mass shooters. We've had too much Antifa violence. This stuff isn't organic, it's organized. That's the one thing about the left. Their violence is always organized because it's ideological. And so we need to take a hard look at the institutional left and begin dismantling it piece by piece.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. There you heard it right there. Just one of the thousands of voices you've heard of national security experts that understand things like terrorism, organization, logistics, command and control, operational execution. All of those, you heard it. One more time. We are in grave danger inside this country at the same time that externally coming into the country are still adversaries in the red-green axis, Marxism and Islamism, and they're also active in this space of domestic terrorism and domestic fighting. Near combat is where this will go next. Isolated pockets of force on force in small groups of Americans against each other. That's where it will go next if we do not disrupt this with our law enforcement and national security capabilities, national defense, War Department capabilities. that need to get after this, because it's more than just a domestic terror group. Antifa, they've been fed by resourcing, funding, training, logistics, and command and control. Remember, there's 100,000 Chinese military-age males that came into this country, it's estimated, in the Biden administration illegally. They didn't come here by permission or without permission of the Communist Chinese government. They are part of this. I guarantee it. My gut's telling me that, and I bet people that aren't national security experts and professionals, gut is telling them that too at this point. And I hope that the American people are being woken up by this, because time is short. Time is short. My guest today is Jake Novak of the American Sunrise Early Edition show on Real America's Voice. Thank you for joining us to talk about this critically important issue, Jake. I mean, that's it. The gentleman there couldn't have explained the Antifa organization and some of its resourcing any better.
No, he couldn't have. And, this is another aspect of the fighting back about this. I said this the morning that we learned who the alleged shooter was, and that it was, and I said that the most important thing I just learned about the shooter is his age, 22 years old. Young people in America radicalized. They're much more likely and they're very fertile ground. Their minds and their souls are fertile ground for this kind of stuff. I know that the person who took the second attempt at President Trump's life this last summer was an older gentleman, but he was the exception. These are young people who've been radicalized. Luigi Mangione, Thomas Crooks, this Tyler Robinson. So I want to say about something else we should do besides arrests and law enforcement and things like that. Talk to your kids. I have a 22-year-old child. It's a daughter. I have another daughter who's 17. And you better believe I talk to them about this kind of stuff, not in a boring or overbearing way. I just say, like, look, I know there's a lot of stuff that you're seeing out there. If what you're doing is watching comedy shows about it and everything, that's fine. But if you're really starting to believe that someone's out to get you or someone is going to kill you for your beliefs only, then make sure that you're talking about an actual terrorist and not someone who's just running for office or things like that. You've got to be very careful about taking these threats very, very personally. I happen to think a lot of people running for office are very dangerous, but I don't think they're coming after me and my house and my bedroom personally. Okay, that's why, because I'm a rational person. So we have to talk to our own kids. Don't forget to do that. It sounds like, and we don't know everything, but it sounds like the parents of this Tyler Robinson is the first name, were probably okay people, but did they forget to tell their son over and over again, hey, here's what's going on. Here, we need to get you some kind of help, or whatever it is. Maybe that might have been, I'm not blaming them. I'm just saying, again, we have to do that just as much as we need to make sure the FBI and the other agencies are on it and making arrests and going. We also have to talk to our own children, because it is the children that are most likely to be radicalized in this way. Most of these acts of violence are people under the age of 30. That really should tell us everything we need to know.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Did you see the news footage yesterday about the individual that disrupted the memorial outside of Turning Point USA's headquarters? Did you notice the shirt he was wearing was the identical T-shirt to the shooter in Utah, the perpetrator in Utah? It was identical. It was identical. Those are the kind of connections that our law enforcement and investigation arms and our national security arms should be looking at. It's not coincidence. I mean, the kids are smart. He may have just said, hey, I have that shirt. I'm going to wear that shirt to do this, to make my point. Who knows?
You talk about T-shirts. I just saw a documentary about something I remember from when I was a freshman in college, the infamous Notre Dame-Miami game of 1988, where some kid at Notre Dame campus made a bunch of T-shirts called Catholics versus Convicts. And when I want to say that the feds went after, this became a national investigation. Who made the T-shirt? Where's the money? It became like a big thing. Nobody died. It was a freaking football game. And we can't look into this. We can look into this. There are fingerprints all over the place. Absolutely. This could be a piece of evidence. Absolutely. Don't laugh. It could absolutely be something here.
Yeah, and there were multiple, it's been reported as factually that there are multiple social media broadcasts in one way or another, posts or music or whatever that said that Charlie Kirk, something was going to happen to Charlie Kirk in Utah. Multiple of those from around the country. It just shows, and it proves that there's more than one person involved, because that kind of information doesn't get out from a very closed loop, operationally secure op and program unless it's intended to get.
I mean, listen, we really should be seeing more arrests. I mean, and we're not. I mean, who are the other people in this orbit? And the people need to be arrested, brought in for questioning. And if there isn't enough evidence to charge them right away, then fine, hold them for the 24 hours that you're allowed to hold them, and then work on getting evidence later. But at least start the process. I want to see people brought in for questioning. I don't want to just hear, oh, the roommate is cooperating. Okay, great. But we need to have more than that. I need to bring in the people who are involved in the Discord chat. If they are not guilty of anything, then you can release them after 24 hours. And I'm not saying that they should be physically abused or anything else like that. Don't get me wrong. But bring them in. Bring them in. It's called a dragnet, you know? Bring in Jack Webb and the old dragnet people and see what comes up from the dragnet within those parameters of the 24 hours that you can hold people before you have to charge them. Period. Go.
Well, you know what, though? We don't have to charge them. We still have the authorization for use of military force for terrorism. We could just rendition them to Guantanamo Bay and continue the interrogation process until we get the information out of them. I don't like saying that, but that's the point where I think we're at, is that we're going to have to start using these tools internally, intentionally, to protect ourselves instead of going after MAGA grandmas to use them to put them in jail for a year or more because Joe Biden didn't like that they didn't like him. Well, we got a question from the audience. We'll take that before we get to the end of the show. Jake, Shell's the host over there. And I will say I'm going to stay after in the after show in the X Space audio. So I'll see you over there. But go ahead, Shell.
We have Liz, sir.
Hi, Colonel Jake. You on exactly my question. Why are they not bringing these people in from those Discord chats and talking to them under terrorist acts? That was already proven to be a terrorist site. Am I correct?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why they're not bringing them in. It can't be that they can't identify them. I mean, unless they're dealing with a very sophisticated user who somehow is able to cover up their identity or their location, that's a different story. Maybe they're trying to do that. But I'll say this, if they are not doing this because they're afraid of some kind of legal pushback, I mean, have they not been paying attention to what's been going on in this country for the last 9 months? This administration has been putting itself out there with deportations and so many other things that they're doing, and just taking all the brickbats legally. They're absorbing it. They're doing it for us. I mean, the fact that you have all these lawsuits against every little thing President Trump does, is the most accountable president in the history of this country, not necessarily because he wants to be, but because they just make him that way. And you're going to say, well, I don't want to bring somebody in. That's a lot of extra paperwork, or they're going to sue us. I mean, if that were the attitude of this administration, we would still have every single one of the illegal alien murderers in this country running around rampant. I mean, we have to have a little bit of a thicker skin here. Now, I don't know if that's the reason why they haven't brought him in, but if that's the reason why they haven't brought him in, that's a lame excuse, and they should be ashamed, because their fellow federal workers and their fellow government officials in ICE and in Border Patrol and stuff like that are doing it every day. You know, grow a pair like those guys have, because they're doing it every day and taking a lot of risks. You should be ashamed that that's why you're not doing this.
Yeah, I mean, lives are at stake, Jake. Kids' lives are at stake. I mentioned the Millers, Stephen Miller's family being targeted by these people. By the way, I just want to point out, I forgot to mention that the people in that crowd, we have them on video. They're late 50s, early 60s, mid 60s type boomers. Is what my young friends pejoratively refer to me as sometimes, even though I'm not quite 64 yet. But that's who was doing that. It wasn't young people doing that. It was those people, because they've been indoctrinated. They've been indoctrinated by places like CNN, and even Fox News in some cases does some indoctrination when it's something that they're in favor of. One last thing I wanted to talk to you about is Mike Lee has re-upped his bill to reinstate the Smith-Mundt Act that Obama removed, that allows propaganda of the propagandizing of the American people. What are your thoughts on that before we get to the end of the show here in about a minute?
Yeah, well, I mean, if it's done by a foreign actor, I mean, listen, we saw this, and I warned everybody this was going to happen. We saw this with all the protests and basically riots on campuses last year and the year before, didn't we? And I said, this is foreign funded. This is foreign operations. Yes, there are a couple of misguided students out there who get involved in every little march, but there were real professional members of terrorist organizations who were involved in every step of the way with these protests. And we saw it with people like Mahmoud Khalil and this other guy who was a student for 17 years. Understand that there are people like that with some of the domestic issues as well. This is not all organic by any stretch. And so reinstating that to find people who are using this to promote anti-American threatening type rhetoric, yeah, absolutely go for it. Again, bring them in. Bring them in. It will help a lot, even just to bring them in and question them.
Oh, you're absolutely right. Look, Antifa, people think it's an American organization, but they're useful idiots that are being used. And we could go a long way, and I'll leave it at this. Mr. President, declare Antifa a terrorist organization and declare the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist organization. That will go a long way to opening up the right authorities for our national security forces to defend us. And we need defending. Jake Novak, thank you very much. You guys can find him on X or every morning early on American Sunrise Early Edition. Jake Novak, go watch that show. It's great. Sometimes he even lets me come on if he can get me to wake up early. Tomorrow, our show will be a vigil to Charlie Kirk. My pastor friend Dan Carr from right here in South Mississippi is going to join us. I've asked Cliff Maloney of Citizens Alliance Group, which is the other side of Charlie Kirk's ballot chase operation in Pennsylvania, to come in to the space and say a few words if you can. Drianna Sixto, who I interviewed not too long ago, that works for TPUSA, Turning Point USA, has agreed that she'll try to come in for a few seconds to make some comments as we pay respects to Charlie Kirk. And remember, keep that family in your prayers. That American family is the future of these United States. God bless you all.